Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect.
Is this thing really on? Are we back, Mike? Finally?
Yeah, 12 days into the new year, we're finally reconvening.
I've been getting a lot of messages just checking on the well-being of myself. Like, are you all right? Everything good? Had to disconnect for a little bit, buddy. How are you doing?
Yeah, you just tell them you all wore me out last year. I gotta take some time.
Last year was a grind for sure, Mike. It's been a different kind of animal. I mean, I don't know. You've been covering this sport for a long time, and I don't know what your travel schedule was like usually, like during a normal year. But for me personally, it was rough, man, to say the least.
I've had some good travel years, and they do kind of wear on you. But yeah, you were motoring around last year.
It's about to pick back up again. Mike, Derby City's coming up, and every time I leave from that place, I'm thinking to myself, why did I come back? Why did I come back to Derby City? And yet here I am on the verge of hitting the road once again to head back to Louisville again. So,
good.
How you been, man?
Good. Yeah, staying busy, trying to get back into the groove of things, and working on just finishing up a great issue coming up, Player of the Year stuff, BD awards, all that kind of thing. So.
You wanna give us a little nugget, Mike? Who's the Player of the Year?
Well, we announced that right before the first of the year, Federer and Christina, both, which makes for a really interesting story. The dynamic of those two, and really, I was trying to think of other sports where a couple were both top talents. Tennis is about the only one I could think of. You had Agassi and Steffi Graf, although that was pretty much after their careers were pretty much over. Jimmy Connors and Chris Everett were kind of in their prime when they were a couple. But this is right up there. I mean, you have bookend world championships as a couple. That's doesn't get much better than that.
And don't forget, it's what does she win, Mike? The World 10 Ball?
She won the World 10 Ball. He won the World 9 Ball. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I think like pool's probably. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a victim of the moment, but pool's probably the only sport where you can really get that. But I think at the beginning of the year, I mean, Christina would have been in the conversation for sure. Federer would have been, a natural selection, but for sure a surprise for Christina.
Yeah.
I know she was like knocking on the door, but
right.
It was great to kind of see her like finally take that next step and not just win the world championship. I mean, she won a couple of things, which was great.
She won a couple WPBA events. After she won her first WPBA event, she was kind of, no one had really dominated the year or anything like previous years, Kelly or someone like that. And then when she won the World 10 Ball, that was pretty much sealed the deal for the women.
Well, we got lots of stuff to get into. I don't really know where to begin, Mike. There's so much stuff. Pools like growing again, turning stones going on. The mini derbies going on. I don't know how those guys can hang out even longer in Louisville than.
Yeah. Why would you go into? Why would you go in there like a week early?
Yeah, let me grind before the grind actually begins. But to be fair, Louisville they got some great food there, great people for sure, including Kyle, the room owner there at Rail Yard, and Michelle.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's a great environment, but it's like walking down that corridor is just brutal, man. It's like I reevaluate life during that like 4-minute walk. You know what I mean? Like I just contemplate, what am I doing with myself? Where I'm back here again. And so be back at the casino starting I don't even know when I'm leaving yet, Mike. I got to book a flight still, but sometime in the next like 10 days, somewhere around there. So,
well, it starts on what, 17th?
I think it's 17. Yeah, they got Bigfoot. It's a little bit different this year, I think, where they're going to have what do you call it? Like the championship Sundays, what they're going to call it. They're going to extend it by one more day.
All the division finals will be on one day.
Yeah, so that'll be cool, But although, like, if you're hanging out for whatever 4 days and you're already out, sweating the 9 ball, and let's say you're playing the one pocket championship or whatever, how are you going to feel about that? So
right, yeah, but it's I'm going to be anxious to see. I mean, they added the one day and then stuck all 3 finals on the last day, and they're kind of making the assumption that they're going to be done with everything with 1 day to go. And I don't know. That sounds just as ambitious. It doesn't sound like they
Ambitious,
really.
yeah.
It doesn't sound like they really made up any time. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. As far you still got to get to the final of each division before you. So it's still. You're still going to have a lot of match. Uncertainty with the buybacks and all that kind of stuff. I don't see where a lot of that's up time, but I'm sure they've thought it through, and we'll see what happens.
Just the word buyback gave me chills just now, or maybe it's the sleeveless shirt, So I got like PTSD from hearing the word buyback.
Right.
Yeah, listen, I know that last Saturday for sure. Like we're out there till 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the morning. Like it's rough. I remember being on a flight back home at like 7 a.m. I think it was, and watching the semifinals last year, and just thinking like, how the hell are these guys doing it?
Yeah, when you get down to the final of the 9-ball, just to get to that final Sunday match, are they going to be playing all night Saturday night into Sunday morning to get to those final 3 championship matches? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But the more I looked at it, the more I thought I'm not really sure where they picked up time by end of the day.
Well, there was a lot of end of year stuff, including BD, Birds Digest stuff, and we saw Matchroom post there. Successful 2025 awards and all that. So Mike, I was talking with Mike and he said, let's do a prediction show, just putting our foot in our mouth and just seeing how the year's going to go. And I mean, we're good at making predictions and having them fall flat in our face.
This is good. So we can start now and get the year off on the right foot by being wrong about everything we pick.
Before we jump on into the first category, Mike, are you going to be heading to Derby at all? Am I going to see you?
I doubt it. It's a bad week for me. But
the old bad week routine, huh?
I'm going to try, but because I feel bad I wasn't there last year and I rarely missed it. So, certainly going to try to get down there.
Well, we hope to see you out there. Get our usual. I think we had breakfast last year, if I'm not mistaken, Mike. Some real nice.
We had breakfast. But yeah, we had breakfast out there, and yeah, there's some good spots.
And there's some really good restaurants out there in Louisville. I've got, I went out there a lot more last year than what I intended to. Part of that was thanks to Michelle. I remember it was like August, July, somewhere around there. And then it was like, hey, do you want to come up for Shane and Federer spur of the moment? And then it just kind of snowballed into US Open and then stopped by Brunswick. And Louisville, I thought was going to be a once a year type deal. But as the pool calendar kind of expands, there's always going to be good stuff. And Kyle, to his credit, is always putting on some great events, great challenge matches, all that good stuff. So
there's good. It's a good city. I mean, there's things to do in Louisville for sure.
Well, I don't know where to start, Mike, on the category list. You're the one who came up with this list, and I'll let you kind of take the reins here.
That was a cold move there.
Yeah, how good do I move, Mike?
Do we have where we? Well, do you have the list?
I got the list. Yeah, I got these. These are some of them that are here, and I got them already typed up and ready to go. Most improved player. Let's see. Did I miss?
So we're going to predict the most improved player.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know. You're the one who came up with this list, Mike, not me.
I'm.
And to be fair to everyone, like we were supposed to do this show at the beginning of the week, and then it just, hey, do you want to do it tomorrow? Then like 20 minutes ago, I said, hey, are you around? Let's do something. So wasn't the most planned out thing on earth, to say the least. So shocking, I know.
Yeah. I think most improved player of the year. That's a tough one to pick because you're trying to pick someone who, is kind of pretty much off the radar.
Well, that ain't bad. Let's start with that, Mike. Well, okay, you want to start with Breakout? We'll go with Breakout.
Who would be the most improved Breakout player of the year? So who would you expect to have his breakout year this year? We also had a list on thing on there. What player would you pick to win his first WNT title? I've kind of got a guy for both of those because I think he's going to have a breakout year, and I think he's going to do it by winning one of the WNT titles. And I'm going to go with my man Moritz.
Moritz Neuhausen. He think he's playing out in Turning Stone this
He's
weekend, right,
still
Mike?
winter,
He's
he's
still
still winter side and Turning Stone, and he's just gotten better and better and better. And in the really big events, hasn't gotten as far, although he did reach the final of the international 9 ball. But I think that he's there. I mean, he's put in the time, he's put in the commitment, he's done the traveling, he's played everybody, he gets into all these events. I like his chances.
I should probably have someone ready to go, huh? I should probably
Yeah, I mean, I stalled as long as I could for you, brother. you have to come with the goods sooner or later.
Breakout player of the year. I'm not sure, Mike. There's so many to choose from, and now with the addition of the Reyes Cup, it really adds a new dynamic to picking these players. I love this like full season that we have, and I know they're already starting with Derby City on the American side. And I think there's like a Vietnam event going on that's going to be starting for the Asian side, which is great. There were some players last year who have been knocking on the door. Obviously Mickey comes to mind as far as kind of having a breakout year. Rhoda ended the year real strong as well. Just as far as having like quality performances and just ending on a good note, and so can they pick that back up where they left off? We'll see. It's so tough because like Mickey, for example, he kind of came out of nowhere, Mike. I mean, I don't think he would have been.
He was your breakout player of the year
15.
for last year. I don't know if he can be breakout player of the year 2 years in a row, but
No. You can't. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy, but and I know we struggle a little bit in the Mosconi, but he's kind of like established now at this point, right? Like he's had, and what I mean by that is he's just had consistency throughout the year. Like it wasn't like,
yeah.
A Robbie Capito, no disrespect to him, but where like you win the major and then it's like, okay, where are you the rest of the year type of deal,
Right. Right. No, Mickey is right there now, and he's going to be one of those guys where when you look at every tournament, you're going to pencil him in for 16 and see where he goes from there. That type of thing. So he's got that type of game and drive. So he's gonna. I look for him to have a good year.
I'm thinking about just players who played tough last year, and that's kind of like what I reflect on. And there's a lot of guys who kind of get more TV table time, and then there's guys who maybe are deserving or maybe on the cusp of more TV table time, but you kind of have to like, grab the bull by the horns like a Johan Chua type of guy, where it's like you force your hand in that you're always playing late on these major events, right? And then eventually it's like, okay, you kind of take your place on that stage. A guy for me, Mike, that I think it's kind of going out on a limb a little bit, and I don't know how much we're going to see of him this year. We don't get to see a whole lot of this young man, but I'm going to go with Kachi, Mike. But it's not the Kachi you're thinking of. It ain't the Clint Kachi. It's going to be Cledio Kachi, Mike. I saw that kid play a few times last year, including Hanoi, and I remember the match in particular with Chua, and he really had Johan struggling in that match. I mean, it was a real dogfight. And I just think about how he's done over the last couple of years. And I mentioned, hey, we haven't gotten to see this kid play a lot, but whenever we do, Mike, his ceiling in his game, I know he doesn't have the break like Big Brother, but he's got the game for him, Mike. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's got that snooker background. He's a really solid player, and so I think that he's a good pick for having a breakout, like you said, if he plays in enough of the events. That's going to be the wild card. Is someone like Mickey's going to be everywhere. Moritz is going to be everywhere. Cledio, he's a Kachi, so he's got that kind of show up when I feel like a type of blood already in him. So we'll see what happens there. You've also got I was thinking of all the, you talk about the increase in Asian tournaments. And you think about all those young Filipino players that you just keep seeing their names pop up one after the next after the next.
Yeah.
But are they going to be able to get out to enough events to make that kind of, impact in this year coming up? That would be kind of tough. I would expect someone like Bernie Regulario to be out there pretty often. AJ Manis, I expect to be out there pretty often. So there's a couple of guys who could make a dent.
Look, AJ's got a really strong game, Mike. And you're right. There's quite a list of Filipinos who you can make an argument for. My only like reservation when it comes to that kid is if he's going to be like drinking too much of the Kool-Aid and kind of playing up to being that social media star and all those things. Like, where's his balance going to be at as far as his game, you know? And so you kind of see him like get into it with JB and all these guys, and it's like, you know, I don't know how much is being a professional versus playing kind of that role as far as being like a top player without maybe having the resume of a top player. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
so, but he's got the game for it. I mean, Hanoi was the first time I really got to see that kid in person, and he's super poised, which I just love. Like, especially when it gets down to like the nitty gritty of it all. You know that he can play with anybody. You know, including like the likes of Carlo Beato and those type of guys. I'm excited to see how the Asian like circuit's going to kind of play itself out. You know,
Yeah,
because
absolutely. It's going to be really interesting.
you're going to get these guys who are just going to come out of nowhere like a Harry, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, where's this guy been
Right.
our whole life? You know what I mean? Where he can come with big shots and, you know, I'm also going to be interested to see like how that transition is going to be for these guys where like they're okay playing these regional events, but are they going to shit the bed when it comes to playing these majors? You know what I mean? When they get the opportunity, how is that pressure going to go and weigh on these kids as well, Mike, or these, you know,
Well,
young adults?
you kind of they need to get out there so that they can shit the bed a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
to a certain extent, they need to kind of get out there, get beat on, realize that it's not, all the Filipino events that they're playing in or the Taiwanese events that they're playing, and this is around the world, and everybody, all the top dogs are there. So yeah, I don't expect them to go in and just start robbing everybody, but get out there, take your lumps, learn your lessons, get some big wins, and start to get a feel for how the process works out there. So that's what they're going to have to do, I think, this year.
Let me ask you a question. I know that's not one of our categories here, but on the note of the Reyes Cup, who would you have as the first player out, Mike, and the first and maybe a new guy being on that team, a new guy?
We have that in there. We have who are going to be the rookies
Do
for
we?
Mosconi and Reyes.
Well, we might as well transition to that then, Mike, since we're here.
Mosconi rookies and Reyes Cup rookies who would be, most likely. Obviously for me, I would expect, if I'm going to stick with my horse, I'm going to stick with Moritz is making Mosconi for Team Europe. Because I think he's going to have, if he wins,
big ask, Mike.
If he plays well, if he does what I think he's going to do, which is win his first tournament, WNT tournament, then you got to assume he's going to be in the conversation, right?
By default, sure, okay.
Yeah, by the numbers, depending on which one he wins, and just by the fact of being a title holder. Then, so at that point, he would be my guy for for Team Europe for Mosconi, for Team USA for Mosconi. I don't know. I don't really say. I was going to even ask you as far as breakout goes. Do you have any U.S. players who you would even consider a breakout potential? I don't know that I see any U.S. players as a real strong contender for being a Team USA Mosconi player.
Well, like so. I don't want to be too victim of the moment here, but so out there in Louisville, I think Landon Hollingsworth had a big win over Federer. I think winning something like 9-2 or something. So and he's been talked about over the last couple of years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it comes to like playing in the bigger events, okay, we'll see. I know he's had didn't Landon have a big win over? He was close to beating Jason. I think he beats Billy out in Hanoi.
He's a great young player, and he would be someone you'd look at for a couple of years down the road. But I don't see him making that kind of impact in it. For one, is he going to be out there for all these events?
Well, that's a fair question.
To get the points, and two, getting the points is a big ask. So I would like to see him again, like an AJ or a Bernie. I'd like to see him out there this year as much as possible and see how he stacks up and see how his, how he holds up over the year, and then look at next year and look at 26 and say, okay, He's had his year out there. He took his lumps. He won a couple big matches. Now it's time for him to be consistent. So that's the type of thing that you see, that you hope for when you see this stuff.
But overall, the whole team, Mike, for all I care, go and send in, Landon and Sam Henderson and Payne McBride and Adrian Prasad and
Yeah.
let's see if they can get better than 11-4 or 11-2, whatever it was. You know what I mean? Like
you've got to get a couple of these guys into the grease and get them going. But you just don't take a rookie and stick them out there because you want to just try somebody new. They have to have done a little bit of work to earn the spot through the year, even if it was just going to all the WNT events or the WPA event, well, whatever they think they need to do. But they got to get out there and play and show that they belong. You just can't pick them on potential because you need to get a rookie. I mean, someone mentioned Lazaro Martinez. I'd love to see this kid, get more action out there these days, get into more of these big events, see him play, see him pull 2 or 3 big names in a row in a tournament and see how he fades. So, that's what I'd like to see from the Americans. But that's, there's a lot of work to be done on the U.S. side.
Well, I think it's like a balance between like, are these kids going to put their neck on the line and their bankroll on the line to go out there and be uncomfortable, and do they, and more importantly, do you really want, you know what I mean? Like, what are you content in being? Are you going to be content in just playing in these junior events or playing in these regional events? And there's plenty of guys like a Hennessy or, Rob Saez or, just some of these guys who just stay and make a living, and God bless them for it. You know what I mean? Like they want to go and make sure they stay in the green and not go and travel abroad and face all these monsters. And
they're not 23 either. So my thought is if you're 23, 24, and you got a dream, roll the dice. If you find out 2 or 3 years later that you can't make it and you don't have the money to do it, you're 27. You still got a lot of years ahead of you to make up the difference. So that's why this is the whole conversation we had with Johan when he was on about how do you develop the new players for the U.S. How do you get them prepared, and then how do you stick them into the action and see how they do for a couple of years and see if you've got a new crop of players. It's all part of a process. So for this year, I wouldn't see any of them. I wouldn't see the process including any of them making any big impact. But can they get the ball rolling?
All right, so give me an American, Mike, rookie that you would say, or maybe you kind of have on the radar for a potential Mosconi Cup rookie.
I don't know. I don't see any of them being enough events to get points. If one of them told me I'm going to play in all the events this year, I'd say he'd be my pick because he's out there giving it a whack. But I'm not going to pick Landon Hollingsworth and find out that he's going to play in nothing but JAC events the whole year. That doesn't do him any good. Someone like Shane Wolford, curious to see what if he's going to do anything more this year, if he's going to get back into it. But he wouldn't be a rookie, so
I mean, second year. You know what I mean? Like maybe
possible. I mean, he kind of took last year off, got married, all that kind of stuff. We'll see.
He's in the finals, I think, or I think he was in the hot seat, lost to Tony at the mini derby. So, look, I think there's a few like guys who you would, make an argument for, like a Sam Henderson, but do you got key wins up your sleeve?
He's the one who I would probably pick just because I know he's out there. He's made the commitment. He's played enough of these guys.
From a commitment standpoint, sure, Mike, but then you got to think like, okay, are you going to have the resume that's going to warrant, have a legitimate argument for, you know what I mean? And
but so I say you can't have that resume unless you get out there all the time. And if he's getting out there all the time, at least he's got the potential for the resume.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got a great game for a young kid. He's really putting in the time and effort. So yeah, he would have been. I should have thought.
You can't argue that.
He would have been the obvious pick to me for Team USA. Still,
what about like a odds out pick, Mike? Like a long shot kind of pick?
You don't think Sam Henderson's a long shot?
Well, I mean, look, if you were going to consider American rookies, I think Sam may be close to that top of the list just from a commitment
You're
standpoint. You
right.
know what I mean?
That's
And so,
what I'm saying, but he's still a long shot.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I can get much longer than him.
Look, I'm gonna go with the kid who I want to see more of him in there, and he is a kid. He's a monster, and he's a monster in the making. And I think if he had the opportunity to be on that stage and he makes himself, be uncomfortable and goes out there, I think the ceiling is really high. And it's Adrian Prasad.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm super high on this kid, Mike, and it's not just because I go out to Sacramento quite a bit. Um, Kind of like, look, Lazaro, you don't really get to see him play a ton, but Adrian just stays playing in whatever events are around there in California. I know he'll go out there and play um, in the junior national championships and all that stuff. But I think that if you were going to go and square him up with some of these big boy American and European and Asian players, I'm not saying he would swim his way to the last day, but I don't think he ain't gonna sink in that first day. I'll tell you that, And so I want to see more of him. I think his ceiling is super high. I want to see him play on those bigger type stage events and just kind of see how he does with the new cloth and the polished balls and the lights and the cameras on him, and just see, look, what are you made of, And so I think it's time for, like, especially on the American side of things, like, I think as a culture, you kind of have to take the floaties off with some of these kids and say, hey, listen, go out there and go play,
Yeah.
And
Just throw
don't
him
keep them.
and hope, see what happens.
Yeah, because listen, there's a big difference when you see these kids that are just playing in junior events versus going out there and playing with the adults, and that's why, listen, Sam Henderson, he is a long shot for sure, but like, he's, for me, closer just because of the commitment that he's had this year of traveling around.
He spent all last year going to all these events, playing
Yeah.
all these guys. He's used to the he's gotten accustomed to the grind. He's gotten accustomed to the facing really killer players one after the next after the next. And his game keeps improving. So you got to like his his chances.
All right, give me a European, Mike. Well, you already said
Moritz,
Moritz, right?
Yeah.
That's an interesting pick, Mike. I mean, like, not this past year, but the year prior, I think he was an obvious choice. And there was a couple of guys who we would have made conversations about, you know what I mean, had arguments for, like an Alexa, who went deep in the U.S. Open, although we really didn't get to see him play a whole lot last year. Wojciech comes to mind, although I don't think he's a WNT pro. So, like, does that limit his possibilities? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he has to be a WNT pro to get to make the team.
Yeah. You do.
I mean, another one who I would consider if he was a WNT guy is Daniel Maciel.
See, that's the guy who I was just thinking of right now, Mike, is Maciel,
yeah,
and I've been
but
high on this guy for.
If there's still this division and he's staying with the WPA, then he's a non-starter, right? So, but a guy like that, a Daniel Maciel, those are guys that I would kind of look at as possibilities. I mean, we've spent years picking Max and Mario. It's time
As that ship sailed, Mike.
His ship has sailed. It's time to move on. Not that they can't make it, but I got to start picking younger.
Look, there was plenty of guys who were like the first guy out, like a Dennis Grape kind of comes to mind, for many years. And you could make an argument for him just based off of results. And you thought his time is coming. And I think it's fair, Mike, and those two guys in particular are fair to have in those conversations. Maybe Victor is someone you're going to start talking about as well in that same regard, because he's good enough to be in that like 8 range, right? That 8 to 9 range. And he's always going to be part of the guys you're going to speak of. But when it comes to rookies, it's like you're not going to get a handout to get there. You're going to have to go and take it, especially on that European team of all teams.
You got to earn points.
You got to earn your stripes for sure. I love the Maciel conversation. Obviously, Wojciech and Victor come to mind. I mean, hell, you can make a whole Polish team and just see how they would fare against the Asians or the Europeans or whatever, because they got that type of talent, Mike. If I were to go with a kid who kind of was around last year, but then kind of disappeared, I'm really high on his game. He just seems. I don't know how he would do in the biggest of stages, Mike, and that's my only concern. But it's Labutus, it's Pius. I think I saw flashes of him last year where he had a great break.
Yeah.
He was in the finals, I think, of Derby City a year ago as well. And I think through the first like 3 months of the year, I'm thinking, man, this guy's got Mosconi Cup.
It's going to click one of these times. Yeah.
It's written all over him, and then Mickey does what Mickey does, and then the rest is kind of history. But I would go on Labutus, and I don't think it's too far of a reach.
I'd love to see it. He's a great kid and a great player, and he would be a solid pick for someone who could, because he's at all these events, and he usually is in that, he always reaches that single elimination, and I think that's a pretty good pick.
If by somehow and I don't know if we're going to get to this or not, but if the WPA Matchroom thing works itself out eventually, Maciel would probably be my guy who I would go with this year, though, Mike. I'll be honest with you, because I think
if he goes to all the events, yeah, it could be. He would be
for sure.
He would be a really solid pick.
I've seen him lose quite a bit to like a Federer, and I think it was like 2 big major events where he loses to Federer, and I think he's going to take that next step. And I know he's coming off a really big win. What was it, Mike? And didn't he just win like 100,000 or something not too long ago in Qatar? Was it?
Yes, something like that.
Maybe someone in the WPA can confirm. But for sure, I would go that route. If I'm going on the Asian side of things, Mike, I weigh it a little differently, because I think about markets are going to be huge. That team last year, it'd be hard to like pull somebody off of it for my money. But odds are someone else is going to go and take that spot, Mike. And so who's it going to be? I would love to see Chua back in there, of course. The MVP, I'd love to see him getting the shot, for obvious reasons because of Vietnam. I think Huang's going to be out there again. And so you're only going to be left with really 2 spots up for grabs, at least for my money, Mike. And so I'm curious to see how that's going to shape out.
You think Clark's a lock for Reyes?
I think they need that market, Mike. They need the eyes from that market. They need to have a Vietnamese player. I don't think any other player in that market's going to go and step up. And so for that alone, I think that value there for what he brings to those eyes.
I kind of hoping by the second year that Matchroom isn't making the picks.
Well, you don't think Efren picked Huang, Mike?
Well,
I'm just saying.
It'd be interesting to see who's going to be the captain. Who's going to, how they're going to run that this year for Reyes Cup. Is it going to be another, non-playing captain, or are they going to go to the same thing they do at Mosconi for the second year? And if they have a captain, is it going to be Effort again? Is it going to be like a Boosty or someone like that? So, a lot of it'll play into it. So there's a lot of questions to be asked there. But I don't think, Clark is a shoo-in.
Look, I think you really got to bring something from a charisma standpoint.
You almost have to assume he'd have to be a wild card pick, right?
Who? Oh yeah, Huang. Yeah, he would have to be a wild card pick. But I think that market is just too valuable to overlook it, and that's and he played well last year. I mean, he played really well, surprisingly.
No doubt about it. But
he came with big shots, Mike. I mean, he was my MVP on the eye test standpoint. I know it wasn't from a points point of view, but I thought he was superb, Mike, in that tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But then we get back to this, is this going to be merit-based or is it going to be ratings-based? And you start.
Well, it's just as much of a TV show, Mike, as anything.
It is. But, if he's like way down on the list, like he really kind of was this year, and a guy like Robbie Capito keeps getting passed over for someone because he's got a little better TV presence, that kind of sours the taste a little bit. And it's something that Matchroom has gone to great lengths to try to insist that isn't going to be the case going forward, right? So,
Sure.
Live with what you say or not. So again, long way to go on that. They haven't even discussed. I'm sure they haven't even thought about what kind of changes they might make going into this year for Reyes Cup. So that's what a good January preseason discussion is all about. It's like
Hail Mary, Mike. Throw it out. We'll see what sticks, come October for sure. Look, if I'm going to go with maybe a kid who he'd obviously be young, but when you think about the Asian circuit and what all it's going to bring and who's all going to be traveling and all those things are kind of factored in. A kid like AJ comes to mind. A kid like Rhoda comes to mind. Bernie Regulario comes to mind. And you could really go like 6, 7 guys deep.
Yeah, you could, but again, they'd probably have to earn it because how many Filipinos are you going to put on the team? I mean, you're probably still looking at Carlo and Chua to start with, right?
I mean, it's still going to be held in Manila, Mike. So, I mean, yeah.
So,
yeah.
You got to be careful with, with how many you load onto a team because it's that balance thing that we're talking about. So,
look, I think like it was cool having Efren part of the show, right? But like, he really wasn't part of the show either. You know what I mean? Like he was good for a photo op, right? And
he
all
was
those
more
things.
engaged. He was more engaged than I thought he was going to be. I thought, I mean, was he captain material? No, but he was way more engaged than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to walk in, wave, and go sit on a couch and eat rice.
Were we watching the same event, Mike? Because I swear, I probably got a photo of Efren asleep on the couch, Mike. I'm pretty sure I do somewhere in my phone.
He got a break. He's like 106. But he was out there high-fiving guys and hugging guys and talking to them between matches and stuff like that. He was
woke him up, Mike. Of course.
He was in the arena. I wouldn't even think he was going to be doing that half the time.
Look, okay. I just look if maybe this event in the Mosconi Cup just kind of showed like how valuable is that coach to that process, and unless they really need like a strategic type overhaul like the Americans do, how valuable is that spot for a list of monsters, and so I think like for what Chua brings to the table, I wouldn't be surprised seeing him as like a playing captain. We all know what Jay can bring to that conversation. He brings it from a charisma standpoint, a personality standpoint, a playability standpoint, so again, it's January, so we'll see what happens, but I'm excited to go back for that event. That's for sure, Mike. So anyhow,
but you think Capito's got to have a pretty good chance of being a rookie too.
Well, I mean, sure, but then it's like I want to see more of him. I want to see him go deeper, Mike, and more consistent. And I'm not saying he doesn't have the game because obviously he does, but if I were going to go and just make like a last longer type bet versus him or like a young Filipino, it'd be close,
On straight up points.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, listen, the guy won one of the WNT tournaments and still didn't get enough points to get an automatic spot. So,
but he was the first guy out though because because of that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Where are we going to transition from here, Mike? We went to Mosconi Cup rookies.
Breakout player of the year we've done. Do you think what new player is most likely to win a world title? And that'll include all the world titles. So if first world title, whether it's 8-ball, 9-ball, or 10-ball, who this year wins? So you could go to if they're still split, you could go to the WPA list. By the way, did you see the final world rankings for the WPA for 2024?
No. What is it? I'd love to know what it is, Mike.
Number 1 player in the world,
okay,
Alex Kazakis. Okay, I love Alex Kazakis.
Come again, Mike.
I love Alex Kazakis. Number 1 player in WPA for 2024 was Alex Kazakis. Filler 2nd, Dennis Grabe 3rd, Daniel Maciel 4th, Kunlin Wu 5th, Naoki Oi 6th, Badarado Ali 7, Mario He 8, Konrad Yuzhishin 9, and Wojciech Svajcek 10. Okay,
how the fuck is Wojciech 10 on the list?
How's the eye test look on that top 10 pool players in the world?
Out heads on the WNT for the max bet, Mike, is what I'll say.
Yeah, let's do it.
Listen, I love Alex. He's a great guy. No doubt about it, Mike.
And he's a solid player, and he's always up there. He's always in there.
He's steady.
But Anyway, so that aside, so my guess would be with the WNT, you've got one event, it's a World 9-ball title. With the WPA, you got two events, World 8-ball and World 10-ball. And given the rankings in the world in WPA, your list of the person who might win his first world title this year would clearly come from the WPA list for one of those two events.
Wait, say that again?
Okay, so you're going to say who's going to win their first world title this year.
Okay.
Okay. Would you expect it to come from the World 9-ball tournament or from one of the WPA World 8-ball or World 10-ball?
It's so messy because suspensions and bans, and is it going to stay? Is it not going to stay?
Well, I mean, we're assuming that as it stands today, they're playing separate events.
Okay. Okay.
So
everything.
The first world titleist is going to come either in the World 8-ball or World 10-ball.
Right.
Or like,
okay. Okay. So I guess I would say.
I mean, look at the top 10. How many world champions do you have? How many guys in the WPA top 10 already have a world title?
So, okay, give me Mario He. Give me Mario He to win his first world title.
2 out of the top 10 already have a world title. So that means 8
Filler and Wojcik then.
Guys,
right?
If they won a world title, would be their first world title.
Is it Filler and Wojcik was the two guys? Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay. Okay. So
you got to pick up, Kazakis, Grabe, Maciel, Wu.
How did Alex get first?
Laddie, Conrad, Mario, so got a lot of options there. Got a lot of options.
Oh, Mike. Look, I would take a Polish player, for sure. Conrad or Misko come to mind because they've had points where I thought they were going to go and just break through, but then the politics of it all have kind of gotten in the way of that. I think was it Conrad or Misko that was in the Final Four of the one that Robbie won, wasn't it? In the UK Open?
Misko, yeah.
Yeah. So, boy, I guess I would go Mario just based off a WPA list. Now, if all bets are off, and let's say it's completely open season, right?
Okay.
I'd probably go maybe Federer gets a World 8-ball, right?
Well, no, that wouldn't be his first world title. I'm talking about first world title period.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Someone who's never won a world title before to win a world title.
Hold on, I'm gonna bring up my list over here, Mike. Let me see who I can find. I'm just going through the WNT list and just kind of picking through some guys. I'm not sure, Mike. I mean, it's tough. It's real tough. I guess. Okay, you know what? Give me Victor. Fuck it, give me Victor, and let me see how he does. Right? I don't know. I don't know because if you're saying just for first world title in general, right? I guess I would have to go that route. You know.
Okay.
I guess a Yap maybe because has Yap won a world championship before? I don't know.
No.
I don't think he has.
No.
What about Jay? Jay's never won a world title, has he?
No.
Okay, so give me Shaw. I'll take Shaw for winning a world title this year.
Okay.
Because that kind of opens it up a little bit, And then on the WPA side, I'd go with Max or Mario on that list. I would take them, and again, I like Dennis Grabe. I like Kazakis. I'm not a buyer yet, Mike. You know what I mean? And so I would probably go Max and Mario before either one of those two guys. And I know I'm picking quite a bit here, but still.
Okay. I am going to go Maciel and Chua.
Well, wait a minute. I don't know we can pick Daniel because he just won the Qatar. I would pick Daniel in WPA.
It's not a world championship. They can call it the world whatever they want to. It's not a world championship.
All right, you got me there. That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one, Mike. All right. All right, we'll see. We'll see how this play. Let me ask you this, Mike. A guy who did really, or guys who did really well this year, and like I guess we would say Kazakis, obviously in that list. Josh Filler comes to mind. Federer, guys who did really well this year. Who would you say is not going to win a major this year, Mike?
A WNT event or WPA event?
One of the usual suspects, yeah.
Who is not going to win? Jason.
But he hasn't won one, has he? So I mean, can you really say
He won Hanoi.
Hanoi? Okay, last year,
Oh, 2 years ago he won Hanoi.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, we're going to go with the judges to see if we're going to let that one pass, Mike. I'm not.
I thought you were talking about who's won a WNT tournament that won't win one this year.
Okay, I mean, I guess that'll work, Mike. I mean,
Is that what you were saying? Of the usual suspects. I mean, I could pick a Dang, I could pick a Robbie Capito, whatever. But
you're not going to pick a Dang. I mean,
they're not a usual suspect, right? But of the usual suspects, I'd say Jason's not going to win one.
I'm going with Federer, Mike.
Okay.
I'm going with Federer. I don't know how he's got a lot of extracurricular activities. It seems like, you know what I mean? Like he spreads himself.
So does Jason.
He spreads himself kind of thin. I don't know. Jason will like do things like, listen, when Jason plays straight pool and he comes back, he usually snaps off something pretty big close thereafter, you know? And so I wouldn't be surprised if Jason goes deep at the Derby following that world straight pool record that he just broke.
Didn't help him out at Turning Stone.
No, but that event's kind of like Gaffey in general. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
Gaffey enough for him to win it about 8 times.
Well, he was stealing for sure. I mean, that's a surprise. I mean, seeing a guy like Levan and Moritz go deep is not a surprise, but Jason was for sure the odds-on favorite just given the field. But like, there's a reason why guys don't show up there, Mike. Federer had wins there. He's not there anymore. Shane, for other reasons, isn't going back to Turning Stone either. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But it's a little gaffy. So that one I just wouldn't say. Look, I just think that the year's going to be different. I'm hoping for anyway. So anyhow, Mike, where are we going to go from here? We got a few more to.
Who's going to win the World Pool Championship this year?
All right, who do you think, Mike? Don't tell me you're going to pick Federer again, because you're used to picking these like low-hanging fruit type guys.
You're not repeating on that. Wow.
It's got to be some. I mean, that event always ends up being like super grindy towards the last like 2 days, Mike, 3 days.
Yeah.
Because it's like what's at stake. What's looming, and it does open itself up for it to kind of be wide open, I feel like. What are you looking at over there, Panozzo?
I'm looking at my list of players.
Well, is it going to be their first World Championship, or can we go just like in general?
No, anybody. Yeah, it could be their 10th.
All right, I'm going to go with a little guy, a little Taiwanese guy. I'm going Little Ko, Mike. Yeah,
I was getting ready to pull the trigger on that one, and I thought, I don't see him this year.
That's
going to be my pick for Chua's big win.
World Pool Championship?
Yep.
Wow, that's pretty strong.
He made Final Four last year.
No, I know, but I mean, just okay. So that is that going to be
better? So what do I got to
do? Top 5 on every list or bust is where Mike's going here. No, out on the limb type guys. No, I just think that
top 5.
Well, he was a top 2 Asian player this year. For the Reyes Cup, wasn't he?
Not even.
He wasn't a wild card, was he?
WNT.
Yeah.
WNT. He was behind Little Ko and
No, because I think he got in on he got on the Asian team by
early on.
being an automatic.
Yeah. But it was automatic after the second event.
So top 2 then.
There were still like 3 WNT events after.
Well, okay, look. Come the World Championship, you can have Chua. I'll take Little Ko, and we'll do a little last longer, and we'll see. Matter of fact, are you going to go out there this year, Mike?
To the World Championship?
Yeah.
I'm still getting sand out of my shoes from the last one.
Come on, man. I want to go.
Yeah, I want to go. I'm not going both. I'm not going to Saudi and Philippines again. So Something's got to
Oh,
go.
well, if that's the choice, I'm going Hanoi and Philippines all day because Hanoi was just too, Vietnam was just too special. I don't want to miss out on that ever again.
That one I would like to go to this year.
Yeah, listen,
I would go more on bucket list than,
all right. So we picked that one. Which is next, Mike? We're running out of time over here. WPA top ranked player. What else we got? Most improved player. Who do you think is going to improve, Mike?
WPA top ranked player, WNT top ranked player. Who's going to be the player of the year?
Okay, who's going to be the player of the year? You going Federer again?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Changing it up a little bit, huh?
Yeah, player of the year. Yes. It's funny because
the last 5 years you would have picked Shane or Federer every time.
No.
Yes, I know. I know how Homer Pinoza
player of the year. I never picked Shane as player of the year.
All right. Who you got then, Mike? Who can you make an argument for? More importantly,
player of the year.
It's tough to do, man.
It is.
And let's say this, Mike. Let's say everything does open up.
I'm going to say. It's a tough one.
Would you go with, let's say everything stays.
Someone you can realistically think will be ranked number 1 or 2 at the end of the year.
Okay. So.
All right. So that list gets really short.
Yeah.
You go with who can win a major tournament. The list is pretty long. You go with who can be ranked 1 or 2 at the end of the year. That's a pretty short list. I'm going to go with Little Cole.
Wow. Okay. So you're expecting really big things from him then?
Yeah, just not the World Championship.
Everything else he's a lock for, except for the World Championship. Look, call me crazy, Mike. I'm going with that German kid, and it ain't the German kid you've been barking about this whole show. It's that usual suspect German kid, and Josh Miller. Yeah, and Josh.
Is he going to be player of the year if it's WPA?
Well, look, every event.
If he played, I'm not discounting WPA tournaments, but to me, for him to be player of the year, he's got to run over to WPA events because he's
you're always going to have a grain of salt when it comes to that.
Paper he's stealing. So if he doesn't, it would be tough to pick him as player of the year, right?
Yeah, but okay, let me say this, Mike. Going off that WPA list, if you opened everything up, who would you make an argument for in that top 10 to have a chance at doing something on the WNT side?
Oh, Josh. I mean, if the gates are open, then Josh becomes a pretty good pick. But based on where everything is today, right now, if they're playing separate, for him to be, in my eyes, like BD player of the year, he would have to pretty much crush all the WPA tournaments.
Look, I agree, but it's just because of the landscape of things, right? Like that's the only reason why we're saying that.
I'm just going with. I'm only trying to play the cards that I've dealt.
Look, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how long this slap on the wrist, if you can call it that, is going to last. And who knows what Josh's, what good standings he's in when it comes to WNT or not remains to be seen. We know the route that he's taking, but like if everything opened up, I would take that kid. And here's the reason why, Mike.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of great players covering this sport over the years. And, I've seen a little bit of it for the last few years. And one thing that I've seen that's been consistent is these like top guys, they try to find a way to get inspired,
Right.
Like they figure out ways to kind of get a chip on their shoulder to motivate them that much more. And I think that with everything that's gone on,
no doubt about it,
social media and otherwise, I think that, and this is why, like for Derby, I expect really big things from this kid. I mean, he already did great things last year, but like, and I think he's top 2-3 all around best players, from an all around standpoint. But I just feel like, just given everything that he's gone through, that he's going to be that much more motivated and inspired and kind of like, okay, you thought it was bad before. I'm gonna find another level here.
I agree with that 100%. If the gates get opened up, Josh would be the betting favorite on vindictiveness alone.
Yeah,
No doubt, and it would be fun to watch. I mean,
it
I
would be great to watch,
walk
Mike.
into every tournament scowling like someone just killed his dog. So that would be fun to watch for sure. So yeah, if the gates get opened up, he's the odds-on favorite.
I'm going Josh, but everything's got to work out, and I don't know that it will work out, but we'll see if it does work out. So, anyhow, what are the categories that we have, Mike? Is there anything else we got here? Or are we wrapping up here?
Over under on when players will get paid for the Maldives Open.
I thought didn't you tell me that they got squared up, Mike?
Huh?
I saw Carlos post. You saw Carlos post, but I thought you told me WPA took care of that and that everyone was taken care of and made whole.
I talked to Dennis Grabe, who won that event. I talked to him in Florida in St. Augustine, and I asked him about it. He said the WPA had interceded on his behalf, and he kind of intimated that the Maldives Open, people were squaring up with WPA, but turns out that WPA did go to the Maldives Open or the Maldives Federation on his behalf, and they've gotten stonewalled. So yeah, none of the top players, him, Kazakis, who finished second, Carlo Beato, all those guys, none of them have been paid by the Maldives Open. So that, maybe we should save that for a episode on its own, because the ramifications and where we could go with that is like there's a lot of options there, because WPA, I don't know whether to blame WPA the most or whether to blame, you got that Asian Federation, which is the big badass sending legal notes to everybody in Vietnam, whether you're a promoter, player, or selling Q-tips. They're threatening you. In the meanwhile, one of their federations had a WPA sanctioned event and hasn't paid anybody. Where are they? Shouldn't they be stepping up at this point and threaten that federation, whatever they got to do? They're really conspicuous by their silence on this, and it's not a good look.
But are you surprised though, Mike?
Not surprised. We've had these tournaments before, whether it's the Maldives Open or whether it's Qatar in the past or the Kuwait, who have had these WPA events and they don't pay out, and WPA says, well, they promised we were going to have the money.
Yeah, but you would figure after everything that's gone on, politically and through the popularity contest of online, like you would think that there's no way they could let this happen, right?
No, but how did they not let it happen? So one, they got, as far as I know, the Maldives, I messaged Lil Co because he won last year, but the Maldives Open in 23, I believe that paid out pretty promptly. So if you're WPA, you're saying, well, this is going to be no different than last year. So I can see them everybody says, well, they should have their money up in escrow. Well, a lot of people know that these guys don't get their money until, their from their sponsors, from everybody else, until the event happens. So it's hard to put all that money up in escrow 6 months in advance, 8 months in advance. So, but
isn't that part of the WPA's platform, is that they're saying that, you're guaranteed everything's going to be on the level and good by playing our events? Isn't that one of their,
it's certainly what they
pillars they stand on, Mike? Or am I wrong here?
I don't know if that's in print, but you would hope that would be a pillar that they stand on.
I think it's in print, Mike. I want to say it's in writing somewhere.
It's just kind of one of those things where it's, we still haven't heard anything from the WPA on this. There's players looking for their money, going public with it, and WPA is not.
And you know that if they go public with it, Mike, that they've long exhausted other avenues to this point.
Well, WPA, did they get their sanction fee for this event? Did they were they there? Did they show up, leave town, and just do the the famous, well, the event's over, we're done with our work, we're moving on?
The handshake, the podium,
medal, put the medal
up,
and then go off into the sunset. So, to me, the WPA's got a lot of explaining to do on what they're doing for the players, especially in light of the high road sanctimonious, whatever, type of stuff they've been spewing for the last 6 months and driving the wedge
Right.
between the players and the associations. So, yeah, they need to come up with something here and make it public and try to, get the players paid. And to me, they should pay the players out of their own pocket at this point, and then worry about tracking Maldives Federation down for their money with the threat of you're going to get expelled if you don't pay.
Now I
That
like the style,
would
Mike.
be a reasonable and something that they should absolutely do. Now, if they dip into their own pocket to do that, that probably means that they're going to have to apply coach the rest of this year until they get paid back by Maldives.
Oh man.
But, they're going to have to tough it out and ride in the back with the rest of us.
No business class, huh? For old Ishon. Is that what you're saying, Mike? Huh?
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
So,
the first thing they ought to have done is made sure the money's good for every single thing that they're involved in, because that's the least bit of concern that you ought to have at this point, especially given how everything's kind of gone, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have this same level of mistakes and issues, and it's been an ongoing joke and issue for the last few years, Mike. 10 plus years.
Littered with events like this that didn't
ask
pay
Jason Shaw.
12 months to pay off or 7 months to pay off or something like that. But again, they just rent stamps, basically. They rent logos to put on events, and they don't have any real skin in the game, right?
No, but they can sure as hell go and this is why, like, it's low hanging fruit when it comes to piling on these guys, but goddamn, like, they don't do themselves any favors, do they, when it comes to shit like this? Like, this should be a non-issue with them for everything they put on, because the first thing they ought to make sure is the money's good and paid out. And you're right, Mike. I agree with, like, look, if you invite me to the party and I fuck up, it's on you. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with them. They ought to go and make the players whole, because they're the ones who said, hey, listen, everything is good, guys, right? You can depend on us. You can rely on us.
Don't worry about this. It's a WPA sanctioned event.
Right. Yeah. And you would think that after everything that's gone on, that the least bit of their concern should be the money at this point, because surely they can't do this anymore, but then they do. And then you have posts like from Carlo, and it's just like, man, come on, man. Really? Really?
Yeah. And this event was the end of June.
Yeah.
The final July 1st. Okay. So we're 7 months after, and these guys haven't been paid. And meanwhile, never been a word from the WPA about, any of this. Don't worry. We know that this is out there. We're trying to take care of the players, whatever. Why do they go radio silent on stuff that just makes them look this bad?
I'm just as curious, Mike, because it's like, you can't end up with pie on your face this many times, or you can't play a victim this many times, but then still have this type of shit that goes on and happens. Not with the way the landscape is these days, Mike.
Right.
And so the first thing they should have made sure is that the money is good for the players, because your energy has been put into other things that maybe you shouldn't have had your nose in to begin with, and instead you can't even make sure the few events you go and put on that the money is good, and it just leaves like this level of players not being sure, right, or not having the faith in them, and it shouldn't be like that, in 2025, Mike, or 2024,
No.
So
especially with what's going on and what they're trying to, pitch as them being the place that players should play, just so interesting.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. Any other news you can give us, Mike, on the WPA side of things?
No, not right now. Everything's pretty quiet right now. Hopefully, I would love to see a Matchroom schedule come out, WNT schedule come out for,
It's the same thing we thought about last year, ain't it, Mike? Same thing.
Last year at least they had something printed in the Mosconi Cup program from 23, right? When you went to Mosconi,
that's right. Yeah, okay.
a list of dates. So they had, and some of them
For
didn't.
the majors,
some of
right?
the dates got changed, but they had a list already put together. Now we're halfway through the first month of the year, and players have no idea where or when they're going anyplace. It's just, I don't get it. I know that scheduling is difficult for them. I know it's different than someone who's doing one tournament, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, come on, guys. You know, they run the snooker tour, they run the professional darts thing. I believe the Professional Darts Association has a pretty good calendar already out for 2025. They got the same issues, probably worse in terms of, you know, scheduling and going to different places and television markets and when Sky can show the events, things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not great.
Well, sounds like we got a lot more stuff to talk about on more shows, Mike. So when are you going to be back? Because I hear you're flying out of town, and it sounds like we got more things to go and chat about here.
I'm only out of town for a day. Meanwhile, the Pro Darts, £125 million television deal over 5 years. £125 million. That's about 400.
It's pretty strong, Mike.
300 at least. Well, no, 100 is probably about 200,000, 200 million. 200 million US.
Yeah, I was going to say 400 was just, yeah.
200 million US over 5 years. I think the Pro Darts group is doing okay. And their their schedule's out.
Look, when you got Scott Frost posting about darts, you know you've done pretty good. You know,
wow.
So yeah,
it's cool stuff. I watched the World Championship final with 17.
It's exciting, Mike.
It was great.
It's exciting stuff. I love watching those guys because from the commentators to, you know, the whole venue, the atmosphere, I mean, you name it. It's like you're on the edge of your seat and it's all eyes on the television.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool stuff.
We got to get more pool players and personalities first. So anyhow, we got more shows coming up. Mike, we'll hit you back up whenever you get back in town and we'll do like a recap on Turning Stone and the mini derby. And then we're going to do a preview show for all things Derby City, every event, including the Bigfoot and Banks and One Pocket and whatever else. There's like a million things, I'm sure. Can you tell I'm excited about Derby? Tomorrow we got a show lined up. We're going to have the Tale of Texas Pool coming on. The director, Kevin's going to be coming on, which is great, along with the one and only Nick Varner. So I've never had Nick on the show. I'm excited for that. And so he's got a lot of personality from the few times I've spoken with him. And so I'm excited to get him on.
Show's going to run.
He ain't no Mike Siegel, right? I'll tell you that, Mike.
It takes him a long time to say a few words.
Well, we're gonna pull it out of him. Anyhow, you guys can expect that at noon tomorrow. We'll be live, and then we'll be having more recap shows. I want to be doing more stuff in the evening too, over the course of this week. And yeah, it's full steam ahead. So the calendar's back, the players are back, the tournaments are back, and we're back as well. So anyhow, we appreciate everyone for hanging out with us. Go enjoy some football. Mike, safe travel.